Welcome everyone to the pre-conference on exercise and nutrition. My name is Dr. Bob Willix, and I have the pleasure today of introducing our first speaker. And we're co-moderating this event. The one thing that I would like for all of you to do is come out of your comfort zone a little bit and leave here with a plan that says, this is what I'm going to do when I get back into my practice. This is how I'm going to implement exercise and nutrition into my program. These are the people that I'm going to bring on board, or this is what I'm going to do to begin to introduce this concept to my patients. So I think this should be a very informative event for everyone here, and no matter how much you know about nutrition and exercise, just open your minds up to the possibilities of how this can change the way you practice medicine. Without further ado, I would like to introduce my partner in crime, Dr. Michale Barber. Dr. Barber is in her former life was an anesthesiologist until she found the light and moved away from the darkness into the light and shifted over into preventive and age management medicine. Dr. Barber has a wealth of experience and is one of the early innovators in age management medicine. She has and is the current CEO and CMO of Cenegenics of the Carolinas in Charleston, South Carolina. She is involved intimately in the process of teaching the value of preventive medicine and preventive health. She has a very interesting story, which I'm sure she will share at some time during this conference, of how her transformation occurred. She is, without a doubt, one of the leaders of the age management movement, if not the leader in the age management movement. Without further ado, my partner in crime, Dr. Michale Barber.
It's nice to be partnered with a surgeon. Dr. Willix is a former cardiac surgeon on the same side of the fence for once after all those years. Before I get started on my lecture, Greg had asked that we make a couple of announcements. One is that you're on your own for lunch, and two is please fill out your evaluations. That's how you get your CME credits. So if you will please do that for us. We are here really to talk about exercise and nutrition and how you can integrate that in your life and into your practice. And so we were given the task of discussing how to motivate patients. And when I was doing my research into this topic, I was sort of astounded to realize that there are no books out there. There are no papers out there. There's really absolutely no information out there about how to motivate patients. And I thought, that's so astounding when you think about it, because it should be the number one job that we have as physicians and health providers, is to help patients to achieve their goals. So I had to go into my own experience and sales information, because salespeople are successful because of their ability to motivate their clients to make a decision and then follow through on that decision. So Dr. Willix and I decided that there must be some need out there, so we may be taking this a step further, but I did find that pretty interesting. So if you'll bear with me, there are not references listed because there are no real references except for in the sales literature. So if any of you do know about any books on this topic that are medically involved, I'd be interested to know about them. I really came up with, going through the different articles and books that are out there, really 11 tools that are important to motivate. Now let me back up for a second and say, part of me says I shouldn't even be up here talking, because you sitting there in that chair as a healthcare provider cannot really motivate your patients. They have to motivate themselves. So our job is to really help them to focus and find their why and to move forward in a certain direction. In our facility, I would say that everyone who touches the patient from the time they walk in the door has some role in helping them to achieve that end. And these are some of the steps that I think are important. I'm going to go through each of these individually, but just to run through, the first one is really discover the why. Why are they here? What are we looking for? Find out what kind of makes them tick. Second is empower and enlighten the patient. Third is care about the patient. Fourth is establish goals. Fifth, document a baseline. Where are they starting? 6, establish accountability and guidelines. 7, reward achievement. Understand and address obstacles. Find out what gets in their way. Monitor frequently so you can stay on top of their progress or lack of. Examine and reassess goals. And last is actually inspire the patient, which in my opinion is probably the most important one of this list of 11. Let's talk a little bit about discovering the why. And I kind of like this quote. You can motivate by fear and you can motivate by reward. But both of these methods are only temporary. The only lasting thing is self-motivation, that which comes from deep inside and within. It's really, really important, and I think this is probably the tool that physicians lack, is the ability to listen. And this is a very important tool, and you have to practice and practice and practice. And that means keeping your mouth closed. That means asking a question, sitting back and waiting for the answer, and then writing down the answer or processing the answer, not worrying about the next question that you're going to ask. It's really important in listening to figure out what makes that person tick. I sort of have my own little drill that I go through before I see a patient. The patient fills out a pretty extensive summary. It's about, 10 pages. And I look at that the day before usually. I see that patient and I sort of try to read through the lines. I try to really understand a little bit about the patient before they walk in the door. And then I consider it my job in that first 10 minutes of interaction with them to find out as much as I possibly can about what makes them tick. Now that requires some things. One, I believe it's really important to sit in the right position with the patient. A lot of research has been done on that, and that having that individual sit on the right side of you helps that communication. To mirror their position in the chair and to mirror their body language to try to get them more comfortable, because what you're trying to do in a very limited amount of time is to see what makes them tick. Find out what they're passionate about. It is almost never what they have written down on that piece of paper about why they're there. They may say, I'm here to lose weight. Well, you need to find out why they want to lose weight. What would be different about their life? What would they like to be doing that they've not been able to do because of the physical shape that they've gotten themselves into? And that is your job, is to figure that out, and with the help of your team. How can their health or their lack of good health be linked with that passion? In other words, let's say that it's someone who, as a youth, really enjoyed competitive water skiing. And over the course of the last few years, they've developed maybe some early onset arthritis, they put on some weight, and they're just not able to do that particular activity anymore, and they had to give it up. Well, that is an illustration where you can say, well, are you interested in getting back to that? And if the answer is yes, then that becomes something you can kind of check off on your list of how can their health be linked to that passion. You need to empower and enlighten the patient. I kind of like this cartoon just to branch off for a minute. Bike to work day, just kind of taking your work and your exercise with you. 2 things that you need to know in order to get the patient empowered and enlightened. Number 1 is, what is required to achieve that goal? I mean, what sorts of things do we need to make happen so that the patient can achieve that goal and meet their passion? And the most important is to let them know that they can do this, that it is possible, that they have the power, that they have the strength with your help to be able to achieve that goal. I think most patients, when they come in the door, don't believe that. They've been told, lose weight, get your blood pressure under control, eat right, exercise, but they don't really feel like they have the power to make that happen, and that is your job to work with them to make them see that. Care about the patient. This top one is hopefully not our new healthcare reform to cut costs. We've moved the clinic to China. Please take a ticket for your flight coupon. Hopefully that's not the way it's going to be. This talks a little bit about coaching, and I think as physicians that, we are, in a way, coaches. Coaching is a profession of love. You can't coach people unless you love them. Doctors don't talk much about love when it comes to their patients, and obviously you can't feel passionately in love with your patients, but you have to have deep down inside some caring and some loving about patients that you need to connect with rather early. The only way to do that is to get to know them, find something about that is lovable, understand their personality. You're not going to like everyone's personality that comes through the door, but you have to learn to appreciate that personality so you can use it to your and to their advantage. And really demonstrate genuine enthusiasm for their health. One of the biggest complaints we get from patients about other doctors that they visited is that they did not feel like the doctor connected with them, that they weren't really enthusiastic about their own health and about helping them to achieve their goals. They were more a number. They had, less than 5 minutes to spend with the physician. It's pretty hard to care and connect with a patient if you see them for 5 minutes or less. Establish goals. I like to look at long-term, which I consider to be 1 to 2 year goals, and then the short-term goals, which are more like a 3 to 6 month goal. And the long-term really should mesh with the why. That's why you have to be working with them to figure out what would you like to be different about your life? What would you like to be able to do? Run a 10K, be able to keep up with your grandchildren, be able to play basketball with your 18-year-old son and not hurt yourself. You have to many times stretch them a little bit. Most of us are used to underachieving when it comes to our physical fitness and our health. So you need to push them a little bit to come up with goals and wishes and whys that may be beyond what they think they're capable of. Short-term goals are really important because I like to tell patients right off the bat, some of the really hard-driven professionals sometimes want to eat the whole elephant. And the likelihood of being able to achieve that in the short term is pretty low. So I try to get them to break down whatever it is they want to achieve into smaller pieces so we can show some short-term success. Because as you set those milestones along the way, it'll be easier for them to get to that long-term goal. You need to be realistic. I mean, I have, and this is mostly men, although women too, men will come in, let's say they're at 230 pounds, 35% body fat, and they're coming in saying, I want to weigh 189 pounds. Well, that's what I weighed when I was 25 or something like that. I mean, I don't consider that a realistic goal. First of all, I really don't care what they weigh. I care more about that 35% body fat and their waistline. And so we have to shift them to something that is more realistic. Not that they're going to give up their goal, but, 185 pounds on someone that when they're 60 is probably not where we want them to be anyway, because we want to give them muscle mass and we want them to be fit and not, underweight. But we're able to make, I think, pretty significant strides. If you look at this body fat, this is an actual patient who EHG means that they were there for their initial executive health evaluation. They then came back for an annual, and then they came back a year later for the annual. So getting their body fat down from 35% to 27.7% is, I think, well worth the time and the energy that patient has invested and that we've invested in them. Don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. Goodness, you hear that all the time if you think about it. We all are guilty of that, or saying what we were not able to achieve. So when you're establishing your goals, you kind of have to put that behind. This is an example of a patient we have who is over 70. And when he came in initially, he was able to do 5 push-ups. And his thing was, I've never been able to do push-ups. I'm not strong enough. I've never been able to do it. Well, at the end of his second annual, he's up to doing 25 push-ups, which is a goal that we were able to achieve really by pushing the nose out of the way and making that no longer an obstacle for him. Why can he achieve that? He's gotten stronger, he's more fit, and he believes that he can do it. Establish a baseline. the foundation for change and motivation is really about that baseline. If you don't find out where we are when we start, you have no idea where you're going to go. So it's really important to get as much information to start with. Be thorough, be objective, and really paint the picture. Get them to understand if we put all these pieces together, this is how we're going to achieve that picture. I talk to patients a lot about a jigsaw puzzle, that all the pieces, exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, hormones, those are all pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. If you've ever put jigsaws together, if you're missing a piece that's under the bed or the table, you cannot put the puzzle together. You have a hole in the puzzle. Same with all the components that we have. We also have this slide up here, again, a real patient, to show that we're not always achieving the goals that we'd like. This is looking at bone mineral density, and you see that there has been a drop over the last year or two. Not necessarily bad, not a hugely significant drop, and that may be because they're not doing the right kind of weight training. It may be because they've lost a lot of weight. It may be they're not taking their supplements, or it may be something we can do nothing about. But you can't really focus on the negative. All those other things were in the positive category, and a lot of times I think patients are used to just going down the negative path and sort of beating themselves up. So you're not always going to have success in every single aspect of what you're trying to achieve. Accountability. I find this is what most patients really come to see us for, and it may indeed be the missing piece. Find out or establish the role that is expected of you. And for me, this is a question I ask very early on. How do you want this relationship to be? Do you want me to be the one who kicks you in the rear? Or do you want me to be the one who holds your hand? Or do you want a combination of those two? And that's an important question because everyone is different. I mean, some people really need that hand holding, and some people really need the kick in the pants, and others need a combination of the two. Make sure that you hold up your end of the deal. If they came to you for accountability and you're not following up with them on a regular basis and asking the right questions, then you're not doing your job. So knowing from the beginning what they're trying to achieve makes it better and easier for you to hold up your accountability in, because then you know what questions to ask. For example, if they're training for marathon and you're on the phone with them for a follow-up, or they're in your office, and you never ask a question about how that training is going, and that's really important to them, you're just like every other doctor in that you haven't paid attention to them and what's important, and so you've lost that accountability on your point as well. Be positive. That is, of course, very important. They're looking to us to be positive, and that means everyone in your office, from the minute they walk through the door until they leave. Every single time we contact them by phone or by email, those interactions need to be positive. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. I believe that is 100% true. And sometimes it may not be easy to be enthusiastic, but it's a very important job that we all have. Reward achievement. Look at that little doggy over there. Having others acknowledge your achievements motivates your future actions. When they've looked at many, many, many different groups of people, the number one thing on the list for almost everyone is recognition. Recognition of your achievements, recognition of your accomplishments is extremely important. I give my patients, if I'm going through their labs, I draw a star on there, when they get, you'd be surprised how excited people get when they get a star, I tell them to hang it on the refrigerator, because people, we're not used to it. Once we get to be grown-ups, you don't get that sort of treatment that much anymore. We're big on hugs at our center. We don't hold back on hugging our patients. We think it's, for a lot of people, that's a really good thing. Get excited. They're excited. Get them excited about what they've achieved. Sometimes the patients receive their lab work before we talk on the phone. They receive it over the email, and so it may be 95% of their goals as far as their cholesterol, hemoglobin A1C, et cetera, they've achieved, but maybe one of those numbers on the lab printout doesn't look right. Well, I get them on the phone and they sound really down, like, did you see my triglycerides, And I say, wait, let's look at all the other things that look really good. So you really have to work with them to get them excited about, even if it's just one accomplishment out of 10. Take advantage of the testimonies. Use them to your advantage. Use them to your advantage, number one, to make you feel better about what you do. If we get a good testimony from a patient, we spread it around the office because, when you're interacting with people every day, you need your own motivation too. And if the patient will give you permission to use that testimony in your marketing and in your ability to recruit new patients and to motivate your current patients, that is probably the most powerful tool that you have, is really other patients' success and testimony. Understand and address obstacles. I mean, this guy looks pretty bad, doesn't he? I always ask on the initial and then on all follow-up, what sort of obstacles get in your way? And they're different for everyone. I mean, most people feel like they have some time constraints, but we have some patients who are retired and they have plenty of time, and that's not really the issue. Travel, we're so mobile, we're back and forth, other countries across the United States. Traveling and being fit and exercising and sleeping well and having a healthy lifestyle is difficult, but we can work with that. Stress, goodness, who doesn't have some? Figuring out what that is. We spend time with patients, looking at the kinds of stress. Is it stress you can do something about? Or is it stress that you just really have to live with and then find a way to do some relaxation and dealing with that stress so that it does not disrupt your good health and your goals? Physical limitations. I mean, sometimes we forget that. Every patient is not the same. I mean, getting a 35-year-old who weighs 380 pounds is different than a 65-year-old who weighs, 190 and has 30% body fat. You would think, 35, they can go out there and, do anything, but, they are physically not able to do that. So be very careful every time you're working. When you're hearing what we're talking about today, you're going to hear some things and want to go implement it right away with your patients. But every patient is different, so you have to take into account their physical limitations because they can become obstacles that get in the way. Genetic history, this is a little less important, but I think it's important to kind of understand what the family background is, what the family dynamics and genetics are, in order to figure out if those are things that you're going to have to be concerned about in helping the patients to achieve their goals. I'm big on monitoring. I think part of the reason for our success is that we monitor frequently, either with lab work or diagnostic measurements. We're even having patients reassess their goals every year and set up new goals for themselves. Follow-up labs, of course, if you're using any kind of therapeutics or exercise or nutrition that will affect their lab work. People really like to see that progress, and it helps you to know how you're doing and how you might be able to readjust their program. That would be, of course, weight, blood pressure. These are just a few things. Heart rate. We measure VO2 max, so we like to see improvements in that as well. Circumference, waist, hip, chest, biceps. Discuss their accomplishments and what changes you may need to make across the board, and then make sure that you're seeing them physically and reevaluating the certain parameters that you think are important once a year minimally, and then document those trends and their successes. We love visuals, all of us. Most of us are visual in nature. If you can see an improvement on a graph, or you can look at numbers on a line or on a spreadsheet or whatever, it's amazing to me what excitement people get from that, knowing what they've accomplished over the course of time that they've spent with you and your team. And that's the other thing to remember, is that it is almost never just the role of the doctor. I'm glad to see there are doctors here, but your other team members are extremely important in helping your patients to achieve their goals, and they'll probably have more contact with the patient than you will. So everyone needs to be involved in knowing. I ask every single member, once they've met with the patient, well, why are they here? What do you think they're here for? What's the real reason they're here? What's going to get in their way? So by the time I see them, I already have that kind of secret information to help the patient along. Reassess goals periodically. This is important too. I mean, they're not going to be the same person sometimes even 6 months after they started, but certainly a year after they've started. Their fitness levels hopefully are going to improve. Their chemistry and some of their markers for overall health improve. And then there will be some changes in their lifestyle. Certainly, I think all of us personally and professionally have experienced the stresses and the lifestyle changes associated with the economy over the last year and a half, and the impact that it's made on patients' lives. People have less free time unless they're unemployed, and then they're not willing to spend their time wisely necessarily. People have less money. They're worrying much more. Their sleeping is much more disrupted. And what this graph really shows is that there's a peak performance is when the stress is really kind of in the middle. And when you're kind of under stressed and not doing much at all, you don't perform as well. Or when you're overstressed or hyper-stressed, your performance is not peak either. So lifestyle has a big impact on how you perform overall, and you cannot ignore that. And it may be that you have to adjust your program with your patient based on what's going on in their lifestyle and things at home. Always asking about, well, how are things at home? How are things with your wife? What's going on with the kids? What's going on with the grandkids? How are things at work? Those are all really important questions that can give you a lot of information and help you to be more successful with your patient. And last is really inspire your patients. Now, this guy over here does not inspire much, in my opinion. Jeremy Jacobs, who's going to speak later, was my trainer and for a while and works in our office. And I would always want to work out with those little pink weights. I'd say, I never get to touch those pink weights. Everybody else in the gym does. Well, they don't inspire much, because they're kind of small. And this guy looks like he's not really in very good shape. So as the healthcare practitioner, I cannot tell you how important I believe it is to walk the walk. And that means, working out, eating right. I mean, there are going to be times you don't. But if they walk in the door and they see a poor specimen of good health, it's not going to really inspire your patients to do well. It shows that it can be done if you're walking the walk. It gives your advice some credibility. It really improves your own connection and your empathy with the patient. And it shows that you are not willing to ask someone to do something you aren't willing to do. I always tell my patients, everything I'm asking you to do, I've done myself. It doesn't mean that I'm always good at it, and it certainly means I fall off the wagon from time to time, but I understand what I'm asking you to do. And just to kind of finish up, without inspiration, the best powers of the mind remain dormant. There is a fuel in us which needs to be ignited with sparks. And I think that's the most important thing that we have to do. You can have all the fancy equipment in the world, all the labs, all the well-qualified people, but if you cannot really inspire your patients to achieve their goals and achieve their why, then you're really not going to be successful. So that is it for me for today. I'm hoping we have some questions at the end. I'm going to introduce my partner, who's going to finish this topic, Dr. Bob Willix. Bob and I have been friends and colleagues for a few years now, and it's been really exciting to get to know him. First of all, he's a well-respected cardiac surgeon, and then he saw the light and got into prevention and age management medicine, I guess about 30 years ago, has helped thousands of people, has written several books, and continues to inspire and motivate me, and I'm sure inspires and motivates his patients as well. Dr. Willix also tomorrow is receiving the Alan P. Mintz Award, which we're very excited about and very proud, and of course not surprised that he is indeed the recipient of that award. So to finish up our topic is Dr. Willix.
It's interesting that we decided not to speak to each other for this talk. So if you see any similarities in our functions, it's because we didn't talk. But the reality is, it's very fascinating to come to present to physicians who obviously have a way of doing things. We were trained to do things specifically, and all I can say is, this is probably one of the most important aspects of what we do. It's how and why our clients become successful. It's because of our motivation, not in motivating them to do so much. So I took a little different look at this, but you'll see many similarities in the way Mickey and I do things. I looked at the top 10 reasons that clients come to Cenegenics for age management or preventive medicine, and we listed them in reverse order. So 10, the first one is it's a transitional time in their life. The second one, number 9 is they tried everything else and it just didn't work. They had a sudden epiphany that something had to change. They saw the Lord. They want to live as long and healthy as possible. Their memory was failing. And it's amazing how often we hear that something has changed. I just don't think as clearly as I did. They wanted to get off their medications. For some reason, they had this intuitive feeling that medications weren't helping them or they were somehow impairing their health, and so they wanted to find a way to get off medications. Now, it's not necessarily that's what our goal was. That's why they come. They want to decrease their weight and look better. The third one is their sex drive has decreased. So it's important to realize that vigor is one of the number one reasons why individuals are coming to you. It's because of vigor. And vigor is how you see yourself in the world when you wake up in the morning. It's whether or not the sun rises really, really like it was when you were 8, or is it like, oh God, another day. They have no energy. Now, there's a difference there, but energy, think about energy as the number one physiologic change. The number one physiologic change, if you looked at all cases of cardiovascular disease, the number one symptom of cardiovascular disease, of course, is death, but we won't talk about that one. We'll just talk about the ones that survive and have cardiovascular disease. The number one symptom of cardiovascular disease is they lose their energy. Long before they develop angina, long before they develop shortness of breath, long before they develop any signs or symptoms of the disease, they just get tired. They lose their energy. And then finally, they just want to feel better. And there's a difference between feeling better and energy and vigor. There's a difference there. They're different modifiers. So one of the things I want you to do is I want you to not take offense, but realize that we came from a field of healing or health, of medicine, where we've used the tool of fear as a motivator. If you don't do this, this is what's going to occur. You have a 30% chance of survival from your cancer. 20% of the people are going to are going to have a heart attack. Fear is a motivator. That's the way we try to get people to do things. If you leave here with no other things, in the 30-plus years that I have been out of cardiovascular surgery, change that. Change it today. It doesn't work. It's not a good motivator. In fact, medicine is in trouble in part because this is the way we motivate. So you must be the change. You must be the change. And the only way everything is going to change is if you change. Your staff relates to you. It's what you do. It's how you talk to them. They're the key. Your staff is the key in getting the implementation, but you're the one who directs them. And if your facility is based on fear, everyone in the place is eventually going to feel that. So change it. Positive motivation is to use hope. And I know this sounds, and you'll hear people say, well, you can't give them false hope. Bullshit. Of course you can. Of all of the therapies we do, the placebo effect still outweighs everything we do. So whether or not you want to accept that placebo is hope, it is. They rely on you. They count on you. Don't let them down. Change it. Come from hope. Find out their why. Now, we have a board in our in our facility, every staff member knows that when a patient comes in, we don't care what they put on the paper. What is it really that they're there for? What is the thing that is driving them? What is the thing that you can do for them? Why are you here? Not why you think you're here. Why are you really here? Why? What is their why? If you can find out the why, you can change almost anything. If you find out the why, you'll be able to motivate them for themselves. They're the ones that have to do the work, not you. You're not the one getting up in the morning and going for an exercise program. You're not the one eating healthy. You're not the one choosing between, the bagel and no bread. You're not the one doing it. So if you know their why, they'll connect the why to why they're doing it. So the whys go together. It's like y squared. This is really important. You've got to find a way to develop a partnership. They've lost faith in the way we communicate with them. This is not about you giving them instructions. When I left cardiovascular surgery, I was the director of cardiac rehabilitation and human performance for 4 hospitals. And I believed when I left cardiac surgery that everyone in medicine was going to catch up to the concept that nutrition and exercise were really important in health. I thought, it'll take about a year for everybody to figure that this is really an important thing for us to be teaching our patients. And I would get really annoyed when I told somebody, you're 60 pounds overweight. If you listen to what I say, then you'll be okay. And then they wouldn't do it, and they'd come in and they'd be fearful because they didn't do what Daddy told them to do. That's not the way we function anymore. It's not good for you to get angry at them because they don't do something or because they don't listen to you. You're not their parents. So develop a relationship. Relationship is really important. Become more than the doctor. Become their partners in their health. Develop a relationship, a partnership with their health. Reverse your image. Change the way you view things. Just reverse it. Whatever it is you see, look at it from the other way. Look at it in a different way. Set achievable goals. If there are 5 things that you need to change, set 1 up as a goal. Don't give them all 5. They're never going to do it. I've been doing this for 30 years. Believe me, I have trained world-class athletes. I've trained with them, and I've trained them to compete in marathons and in triathlons. You cannot get them to do every single thing they need to do to get ready for an event. And this is the event of life. So if they've got 5 things to change, go to the why and use that as the number 1 motivator. So if there's 5 things to change, set goals, reasonable goals. And if you don't have the solution, make the damn thing up. My staff laughs at me because, some of the physicians will say, well, I don't know what to do with this. I go, well, make it up. They don't know. Just make it up. I know you don't know. I don't know either. But the one thing I've learned is if you make it up, it gives them hope. So just make it up. If you don't know how to train somebody in something or how to get them to eat right, make something up, even if it sounds ridiculous. Sometimes the most ridiculous things are great motivators. I remember giving a lecture one time, 28 years ago, where I said, somebody raised their hand and said, Doctor, how important is milk in your diet? I said, what are you, a cow? So, of course it questions, well, what about calcium? Where do I get it? So if you make something up, they're going to question, is this really, what did he say? What, am I a cow? So change your point of view. Address the results from the point of hope, not fear. And that means look at things. So I get a bone density, and it really looks like I got pretty significant osteoporosis. So how do I approach that? These are the things that we're going to do to stop the demineralization of your bones. That's a totally different story than, oh my God, this is what we have to do, and you're going to, take the approach of give them hope. What is it that about their bone density that you can use as a motivator? This is why I don't want you to drink carbonated drinks. This is why I need you to make sure your vitamin D levels are up. These are the ways we're going to check to see that you're doing everything you can do. And our first step in your bone density is to try and stop the demineralization. And then, what are we going to do after that? So set the first goal. We're going to stop the demineralization. Wow, can we do that? Even if you don't think you can, you can. Make it up. My VO2 is low. I got a problem. I'm really, I'm at risk of heart disease but these are the things we're going to do. We're going to retest you in 3 months. My body fat is 40%. Oh my God, I'm never going to get down to that weight I was at. Fine. We don't want you to get to 12% body fat. Let's set your goal at getting to 28% body fat, 30% body fat. But use some motivational tool that's positive instead of negative. And if your labs are out of range, do exactly what Mickey said. Don't go to the ones that are out of range. Go to the ones that are in range first. And then use the ones that are out of range to say, well, it's not really that bad. Really, we can do this. And let's look at it in 3 months or 6 months, and we'll see where we are. Take the other viewpoint. Always take the other viewpoint. Because they're living in the world of fear. Take them out of fear. Give them hope. Stay out of the disease probability, beginning to believe that every disease is reversible. I'm going to say that again because I really don't think... How many people in this room believe that every disease is reversible? Good. There's like 20 people believe that every disease is reversible. I want the whole room to believe that. They are reversible. Remember, your body cells rejuvenate every year. It takes longer for your liver than it does for your red blood cells. But if you begin to go on a healthy lifestyle when you're 50 or 60 or 70, your cells the next year are going to be healthier. Disease is reversible. Coming from the disease-oriented system into the age management preventive-oriented system, I can tell you, you call them miracles, but I don't anymore. They're expected outcomes. You expect them to get well. And it says if the patient is told that there's a chance, and they believe there's a chance of improving their health or changing it, there are scientific studies to show at the quantum level they will heal. Remember that medicine, despite what you like to believe, medicine is an art. It was never meant to be a science. It's an art. Use voodoo. This is really big with me. I want to know who they are. I have a sheet that I fill out. I sit down there for as long as it takes for me to find out who they are. I want to know where they were born. I want to know what their childhood was like. Not because I'm doing a psychological profile on them, because I want to find out who they are. That's how I develop that relationship. I know where they went to school, what they did, what their failures were, what their successes were. I know that from their point of view. I know how open they are to give me that information. I ask them about their spirituality, their religion, their family history. It's really important. So I use this as part of the way that I get into. I want to know, were you ever an athlete? If you weren't ever an athlete, did you ever do, what was the hardest thing you ever did in your life? And if you find that out, you can use that as a tool. Know about their childhood, their religious beliefs, their education, their work history. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I really believe that this is the missing link in why individuals don't change. Find out a little bit more about them. I'll bet you that in 5 minutes you can find out more about a patient or a client by asking certain questions. You obviously have to know how to do the interview well enough, otherwise they're going to get off on their miserable divorce, or their mother beat them and hit them in a cage, and they grew up with the gorillas. That's really nice, but that's not what I want to hear. Okay, I want to know more about if you grew up with the gorillas, did they smell bad? Get them off the topic. Get them to get where you need them to be. If they're spending all their time telling about their miserable childhood, ask them whether or not they believe in forgiveness or something. Get to divert the conversation. In 5 minutes, you can find out more about people than any technique I've ever learned in medicine. And then once you find it, remember this. You got to give them back their dreams. You have to give them back their dreams. They're coming to you because they're dreaming about being healthy again. Set a goal and let them believe they can do it. And even if it's baby steps. I don't ever want to be a grown-up because growing up sucks. I want to dream like I did when I was 8, when I thought that I was going to be in the World Series. I missed my game last night. I wasn't in that game. I should have been. Live your dreams. Find out what their dreams are and live them. Reignite the inner athlete. If you find somebody that was athletic in college, even though it's 50 years ago, ask them to remember. Remember what it was like. You know, football players all know this. I always say to them, you know, remember what 2-a-days were like? That was miserable. You know, it was really, remember? Now, if you've experienced a lot of these things, it becomes a lot easier. So experience some things for yourself. You have to be either motivating them as an athlete or setting goals, as Mickey said. Remember that outcome changes with the observation. If you're the observer, you change the outcome. If you observe that they're going to get well, they're going to get well. It's a quantum physical principle. Your thought creates reality. We live in a parallel universe. You don't question that anymore. The science behind prayer being good medicine. You can read Dassi's work. You can read Chopra's work. You can read Einstein's work. You can read anything you want. Everything is about consciousness. It's your consciousness that creates their reality. Dream for them. If they can't come up with a dream, dream one up. Use the phone to contact your patients. Don't rely so much on face-to-face. You don't always have the time, but you need to stay in touch. So use the phone, send them a text message or an email. You have no idea how impressive people, how much they're willing to do when you shoot them off a fast text message or email saying, how is the marathon? How are you doing with your diet? I want to talk to you. Just get, you got a few minutes to just talk. I call them status calls. But you don't ever even have to talk to them. Just let them know you care. And then assessment, measure results. Make use of hormones, nutrition, exercise. You're going to hear about nutrition and exercise today, and tomorrow you're going to hear about hormones. It's very, very important. Of all the things I've learned since I quit cardiovascular surgery, I can tell you that if you leave this room not understanding that the number one thing you can change for their energy is their activity. And the number 2 thing you can change is the fuel that they use. Exercise and nutrition are better medicine than any statin drug you'll ever imagine. They're better than any medication we have. You know, it was always said years and years ago that the physician of today had to become the nutritionist of the physician of tomorrow had to become the nutritionist of today. You're all here because you believe that. Congratulations to you. Incorporate integrative healers. Don't underestimate the value of acupuncture, qigong, all of those things that you don't, and be the example. You took up all my time. I'm taking yours. You talk for more than 15 minutes. Give me my 15. Be the example. If they come in and they know you've never done any of this stuff, you don't eat right, you don't exercise, you may think that you can't, but you can too. You've got to be able to sweat with them. You got to be able to feel a little bit of their pain to understand what they're going through. You need to train. Don't ever let your practice interfere with your training. That's my motto. Find a goal for yourselves and achieve it. You have to be the example. One person can make a huge difference. I won't go through these. These are just some pictures that I was going to say. Remember, you have to be the change for your patients are looking for. The disease-oriented approach doesn't work, especially in chronic illness. It doesn't work. We're always looking for alternatives. This is it. Find a way to slow down glycation, improve vigor. The new paradigm of medicine is what our founder at Cenegenics started Cenegenics for, when Alan Mintz started the program. When he and I met 10, 11 years ago, we sat down and we said, the future of medicine is to change the paradigm from a disease-oriented system to one of age management and prevention. This is the new paradigm of medicine. We are so blessed to have you here. We are so pleased that we can introduce you to a new way of looking at health, and we are honored to have this program today. This is something that Mickey said. I just want you to take a few lines of this. This is a patient that came to us 4 days, a week ago. I know that I've been a bit skeptical in light of the previous attempts. He'd been in every major program in the United States. I found the initial session to be full of information and inspiration. I was blown away by the detail. While I have known for years the basics I needed to implement in order to correct my weight, I don't think I have ever really understood the negative impact of consuming small amounts of high glycemic index carbohydrates. I left your office. My level of motivation towards solving my problem was at an all-time high. I had eaten well throughout the day and taken plenty of water. I determined, blah, blah, blah. Over greater significance was my decision to ask my wife to throw out all the Weight Watcher snacks and treats so that I could help myself a couple of times a day, and virtually my memory, I articulated to all of you that combating the force of my nighttime eating obsession had always been my number one challenge. Well, Friday night was the first time, perhaps in my adult life, that I ate absolutely nothing. I followed that evening with a vegetable omelet, 0 snacks at night. I started my 3rd day. I have set up 2 workouts with my trainer. I have shared with him a bit about my experience. We will sail the new vessel together. Everything occurred in transforming this individual because of the caring of a staff that found his why. This note came to us 36 hours after he was in our facility, and we've gotten subsequent notes telling us how excited he is about the change that he's making in his life. He weighs 360 pounds. He's been to every major nutrition program in this country. He's been incarcerated at Duke. He's been incarcerated at Canyon Ranch. He's been incarcerated at Pritikin Longevity Center. He's been incarcerated, and he asked us to incarcerate him at Cenegenics, and we've refused because we said to him, even if we incarcerate you, we're going to have to let you go. And if we let you go, you're going to be in the outside world, so trust us. We know how to do this. You know how to do this. Dream for them. Remember this slogan. This is what we teach everyone. Your major goal is to live well, longer. Doesn't mean you're going to live longer. You're going to live well longer. Thank you.